Hey there, thanks for joining me. I found this video I'm going to show you after I talk a little bit here that you might find interesting. You know that I'm a proponent and supporter of truth, and that I do a lot of research to ensure that I'm on the path of truth. And I've been doing a lot of reading lately. I've been reading a book called The Private Science of Louis Pasteur. I've been reading two other books on the fraud of Louis Pasteur and Pasteur versus Béchamp, and looking a bit more in depth at the somatid cycle, as I show you in some of these pictures. And I really want to teach this. I really feel it's important for people to get this, to understand this. And specifically in terms of the way in which modern medicine is treating our so-called ailments using antibiotics, using biologicals such as injectable vaccines. When you understand the terrain, when you understand that we have somatids in our blood, in our fluids of our body, in all of our organs really, because they do migrate, and that these are the sources of our endemic bacteria, fungus, and what they are calling viruses, which, as I've explained in a few other videos, don't actually exist in terms of what they're talking about. We now have to come back to history and the drawing board and understand that we've already understood all of this in the past. We have had horrible men erase this past by acting in devious ways and fraudulent ways, and big industry enjoying the fruits of their misdeeds and taking that and running with it, and creating a huge trillion-dollar industry based on absolute, unbelievably horrid information and really bad science. Now, the germ theory has been well disproved, and we know, and science even knows, that the terrain is what shapes what is become of the inside of the body, where the tissue breaks down and becomes acidic, where the inflammation comes in, and, for example, in the stomach breaks down the villi, so there isn't proper absorption of nutrients. And that probiotics, which are bacteria, have to actually coat the villi of the gut in order for it to work at all. And these things are vital to health, yet we're being sold antibiotics which kill the probiotics which we need to digest food and do a host of other horrible things to the body, and vaccines which have a terrible history of killing, maiming, causing diseases, of agglutinating inside the blood, causing disease of the heart valves, and leading to secondary, tertiary, quaternary diseases. And here we are going on as if the germ is the bad guy and we have to keep attacking it. We have to quit this. This is killing us. We must get to the truth. And what I'm showing you here in this quick video is, I'm not going into too much depth. I'm just really trying to help your mind erase the propaganda and the brainwashing that we've been sold, that all of these bacteria and fungus and so forth are there to do us harm. They're not. What happens is that in the first 3 stages of the somatid cycle, which you'll see a lot of in the following video, the somatids are in healthy state. And after that, the rest of the 16 stages are pleomorphic, which means they change shape. They come out of the red blood cells. They are formed of red blood cells. And you'll see them remove red blood cells, sterilize the medium, make sure there's nothing else that can get in, and you will see when they introduce any kind of sugar that immediately fungal forms begin to grow out of the red blood cells. Because you see, you cannot kill a somatid. It's part of it's part of the red blood cells. It's coming out of that, and it will change shape very quickly in response to a poison, aka sugar, that's put in the body to immediately try to digest that. Okay, this is your body trying to help you, not trying to hurt you. If your nutrition is there for recovery, it will recover. If you then do not have that nutrition, you continue to attack your own self by poor diet and lifestyle and chronic stress, that will eventually cause further tissue breakdown and more of your own somatids changing form into these new shapes, into all kinds of bacteria, any type that you can imagine will be there. In fact, there is information, there's a study done that shows that H. pylori is endemic to us. It's part of us. It's just when the body breaks down in the gut to a place where the H. pylori migrate, they're just at the wrong place. They're not supposed to be there. Not only that, in this study I'm showing you in a moment here, is proving that H. pylori is protective to the body. It protects against asthma. And in this study, they go along to say that several, they're calling viral and parasitic pathogens, including influenza viruses and helminth, have been implicated in protection against asthma and allergy. Additional observations point to H. pylori as a plausible causative agent in asthma protection. First, H. pylori is rapidly disappearing from human populations. Yeah, because we're killing it all. Its disappearance is evident as a birth cohort effect, with fewer than 10% of children still harboring H. pylori in industrial countries compared with the historic 70 to 90%. The decline in H. pylori infection rates has preceded a rise in the prevalence of asthma and other atopic diseases in developed countries. Numerous case control and cross-sectional studies have reported an inverse association of H. pylori infection with asthma, allergic rhinitis, and atopic dermatitis, especially in young individuals with early onset disease. H. pylori infected children are known to preferably lodge TREG responses to the pathogen, which may account for the particular beneficial effects of H. pylori in this population. Look, we gotta stop killing things. We need them. They're our friends. When I do more and more research on this, I am aghast. I am really aghast at how far we have come from the truth, and how many people have suffered because of these lies, and because this Louis Pasteur maniac who fought against Béchamp for most of their careers has really done us in with these ideas, these false ideas, and their bad science. And it's really shocking. It's really upsetting to see how many babies have died at the hands of vaccines, how many families ripped apart, how many people are having degrading health because they've been injected with a vaccine that's caused all of these issues in their life. Like when they did a study on soldiers, as they do, because they use soldiers as their experimental guinea pigs. They took the soldiers and they injected them with typhoid vaccine, and they developed a paratyphoid, which they then were confused about, so they thought, oh, it's not working, let's vaccinate them again. And then they produced another paratyphoid, which was called B, because there was now type A and type B, and then they injected them again, these total mad scientists who like to experiment on soldiers, and they developed influenza. My point here is that the vaccines, they morph the germs that they've put inside the vaccines. When they agglutinate inside the blood, they begin to immediately shift and pleomorph into new forms, and then they express, and the expression is the cure. The expression is the body getting rid of the toxic material, and they're creating new diseases from these vaccines. That is just case in point of one so obvious that it is alarming that these scientists couldn't figure out that they were creating diseases based on altering the terrain and creating pleomorphic strains. The fact that we just kept continuing on, and to this day, here we are, it's not a good place that we're in. We really need to go back to the brilliance of Beauchamp and listen to his work again. It goes to show you, when all of these powerful, true scientists were jailed and destroyed, like Rife and Beauchamp and Reich. It's alarming what's happened. But it's our responsibility now, because when birds flock, when they're being attacked, and they do that beautiful dance, that beautiful movement, that's what we need to begin to do. Each of us needs to understand this information, share this information, and really change around our own brainwashing and clean up our minds of this false idea that germs are our enemy and are dangerous, and all this kind of crap. And we need to understand that it's our lifestyles, our stress, our food, that's what's causing everything. The EMF fields, the GMOs, and the vaccines, they're all causing it. And the antibiotics, they're causing disease. Okay? And if we all flock together to fight the enemy in the Committee of 300, you can watch a video I posted on that, then you'll begin to see that we are the ones with the true power. But we all have to take responsibility and share the information and be brave with it. Otherwise, we're just done. I think we're done. I don't see how we could continue on vaccinating like this, eating like this, putting the amount, getting 5G now rolling in. They've got a zombie nation in the 5G areas in Europe now. The diseases are going to go off the charts. We are going to have one epidemic after another. And it's all based on the health of the terrain, not with this fraud, Louis Pasteur, who, just look at him, he looks like a disease, right? He killed so many animals. The anthrax vaccine was dropping farmer sheep like as fast as you can imagine. No, it saved nothing, and it saves nothing to this day. You're lucky if you can actually survive the vaccine. You've had enough of strength of a terrain to do so. And when your body begins to have a fever and try to push out toxins, if a vaccine's been introduced, that's the brilliance of your own microbes working to get that out of you. And then what's even worse is I see parents lining up to get their children vaccinated when they have a normal reaction to being poisoned by having a high fever and a rash and probably diarrhea and maybe vomiting, whatever. Then they intervene with Tylenol and more poison to stop the body from purging what it was just poisoned with. Oh my gosh, we have to protect the babies. We have to protect our children from these monsters. And it really comes down to us. And I really want you to understand this and watch it a few times if you need to, just to get this through to your programming, to your subconscious mind. And we have to quit watching TV and quit poisoning our minds with all of their owned media. They own it all. Hollywood is owned. Everything. If you're watching television, if you're reading newspapers, the mainstream media is owned. It's been so for a long time. And if you don't know that yet, I don't know where you've been living, because it's not in the real world. All right, we have to get this germ theory out of the picture. And you're going to watch a video now which is going to help you with this and show you living somatids under the correct microscope and imagine what's happening in your body. And it can really just help you put the right things in and nourish your body and focus on what changes you need to make in your own lifestyle to prevent disease. And it's most certainly not in a needle or in a drug. It is in a shift of your perspective and in eating living foods, raw foods, and fresh foods full of oxygen, breathing, grounding, resting, and getting the toxins and the parasites out. And if you want more information, you can visit my website is yummymummyemporium.org. And please, if you can like and subscribe to my channel and make a nice comment and share this video, that would be important for everyone to start to learn this information. I thank you very, very much.
Pleomorphism is the mutation of microbes, germs, from one form to another when a different food becomes available. This terrain is the food environment present for the microbe, bacteria, fungi, or germ to eat.
The environment or terrain throughout our body can be in a normal physiological or imbalanced pathological state.
One of the first writers on the subject of pleomorphism was a French scientist, Antoine Beauchamp. An adversary of Pasteur, he argued that germs were the result of disease and not the cause, due to his observations of tiny pleomorphic organisms he called microsomas, or microbes. The decay initiated by the microsomas when cells die is identical to the fermentation process in wine, beer, and the inversion of sugar. The microsoma can survive in the limestone for millions of years. Microsoma, not the cell, appear to be the smallest units of life and its building blocks.
The microbe is nothing. The terrain is everything.
Dr. Royal Rife invented a universal microscope with quartz lenses so that he could actually keep specimens alive for a period of time to observe their life cycles. And he used radio waves to explode the pathogenic life forms. Then along came Gaston Nessens, who built a Rife type of microscope that would permit doctors to see blood and living cells illuminated by UV light. The tiny dot-like particles in the blood he called somatids. These somatids had 4 stages that had healthy forms, and then as the food or nutrient base degraded, the following 16 stages of somatid evolved into bacteria and unhealthy life forms such as yeasts and fungi.
It is what happens, not what it is, but what happens to this rod bacteria that is significant, because it's going into what I then videotaped and captured for the first time that I know of, and I've showed this at Vienna University, I've shown this at Tsinghua University, I've shown this at Oxford University, and now we're showing this at Harvard University, which has never been seen before, the biological transformation of bacteria into a red blood cell and then bacteria out of the red blood cell. It's reversible.
With the term environment, we are relating to the internal balance, the metabolism, the pH value, hormones, fats, glucose, proteins, the state of the immune system, degree of waste products in the metabolism, minerals, vitamins, and trace elements. The constellation of all these elements is vital for our health or illness. The endobiont adapts itself to the changing environment, which can be seen through the microscope as a change in its shape and form.
Another doctor, a Dr. von Bremer, called the somatids Sissiphonospora polymorpha, showing in this diagram how they change with the pH. Here we can see in Enderlein's wheel about 42 different stages of the evolution of these forms. And I think here also that only the first 4 stages are actually healthy or safe. The rest are starting to show stages of alarm or an incredible debris of toxic waste.
All fluids found in the living world of plants, animals and humans contain a microbe which various scientists have called an endobiont, somatida or oncoexma. It is to be found in all body fluids, including the blood, urine, saliva, and the seminal fluid. At first, this microbe appears in the size of a virus, but depending on its environment, can mutate to the size of bacteria, and under certain circumstances can even manifest itself in the fungal form. The endobiont's purpose in an intact environment is a marginal yet permanent stimulation of the immune system. Deviations from the normal body fluid environment inevitably cause cyclogenetic mutations in the endobiotic viroid microbe, which then mutates from the symbiontic state to parasitical forms and thus indicates the degree of the pathologic state. To provide evidence of this, a blood sample was washed several times to eliminate the serum infestation, and then placed in a saline solution and enriched with glucose. After about 10 minutes, the endobiont has escaped from the enterocyte into the symphytic environment, where it develops itself first into a Y shape and then continues to mutate into a rod shape. Then it divides itself into tiny cocci, which finally emit ball-shaped elements into the surroundings. When subjected to an even more extreme change to its environment, the endobiont will even develop into a fungal state, as the following pictures show. Strong mycelia in serum, flexible mycelial threads with spores coming from a red blood cell, conidiospores, yeast forms budding. The conclusions that can be drawn from these observations are that the stage of the endobiont development provides information on the state of the environment in the patient, which can be used for diagnostic analysis. As can be observed here, leukocytes scan the membranes of the enterocytes by moving in an amoeba-like fashion, and briefly they are even stuck together. The migratory behavior of immune-competent cells, through chemotaxis, has led to the enclosure of this tumor cell by a wall of several layers of lymphocytes. It is this multi-layered wall structure that proves that the defense cells can communicate to each other on a chemical level. That must be based on signal molecules of the cell membrane, which give the appropriate stimulus for a carefully targeted migration effect. This cell is full to bursting point with endobionts and cannot sufficiently fulfill its decomposition task any longer. The cell bursts and releases its contents into the serum, allowing the environment to be recontaminated by the freely moving endobionts. With its quantity and degree of deformation is an indicator of how disturbed the patient's environment is, and allows conclusions to be drawn on his state of health, in particular regarding the initial stages of cancer. It should be kept in mind that both algae and mold fungi are subject to specific cyclical changes which are dependent on the variable external conditions of their environment. This rouleau formation of enterocytes can only be explained by the altered electrical charge on the membrane caused by the electromagnetic processes.
So now let's go down into the intestinal tract and actually look at the intestinal villi. This is where the food is actually absorbed into the blood, and this is where all the microcytes of lactobacillus need to actually be in there, coating every surface so that they can filter out harmful bacteria allow the right kinds of food to be absorbed and broken down, and they provide enzymes, amino acids, and they help prevent protein going straight into the blood. Now we can see that when there's a lesion formed in the intestinal wall, an actual wound, and the types of bacteria that infect it can be cleaned up. So here comes a pathogenic bacteria all migrating to the wounded site, and they can be cleaned up by probiotic bacteria falling in and displacing them and moving them out and beginning the process of repair